You're listening to the Spark Your Light podcast, episode number 285, How to Build a Morning Routine That Actually Works. And my mission on Spark Your Light is to help you create a life that sparks the light inside of you. I want to make a special shout out to my new sweatshirt that Richie got me for Christmas. It says Spark Your Light. It's embroidered and it's one of a kind, and I thought it was such a thoughtful gift, so I had to wear it here. So you might catch me wearing it on some of my recordings. It's comfort colors and it's so soft, and I mean, you gotta love like a thoughtful gift like this. Like, it's even more special that he came up with this idea and got it for me. So really happy to be wearing my new sweatshirt on air for this episode. This episode is for you if you love the idea of a morning routine, but sometimes feel like it's unrealistic for your real life. It's also a bit of a building block from the last episode about creating consistent habits. So if you haven't listened to that one, these two go hand in hand. I wouldn't say that you have to go back and listen to that one first if you haven't yet, but it complements this one. So whether you listen to this one and then that one, or you've already listened to that one, they kind of go hand in hand. So keep that in mind. So morning routine is something that is really important to me. I have had one for many years. I'm a morning person. I love my mornings. I love setting my day up for success. I love feeling good in the morning. I love all the things that people tend to do during a morning routine, like drink your coffee or some sort of warm drink. That is such a cozy thing for me. I love to read and journal and just kind of do these different personal growth, self-care type things. They're just fun for me. And so morning routine is very up my alley. But my life has changed dramatically in the past year. I went from being a self-employed person that made her own schedule with no children to being a stay-at-home mom who also happens to have a business. And everything has changed. And I have learned that while it's nice to have a morning routine that takes an hour and a half, that is not realistic or practical for me in my life right now. And I know for so many of my listeners, you have jobs, you're in college, you have families. We have listeners in many different age ranges. Thank you so much to Spotify for providing such wonderful statistics on our listeners. And so many of you are in different life situations where you just have a limited amount of time. And when I named this episode about a morning routine that works, what I mean by that phrase is that it actually fits into your life regardless of unexpected things coming up, regardless of busy days. It's something that you can actually do. That's my goal here, is to give you something that is realistic for having a limited amount of time. Like, I mean, if you only have 3 minutes in a given morning, I want you to be able to do your routine, because that's a morning routine you're going to stick to. So the first step in building a morning routine that actually works is knowing what your minimums are. So this is something we talked about in the last episode with habits. You want to start with small amounts of commitment because low intensity creates high consistency. So what are your minimums? So I'll share some of my personal minimums. It's reading even one paragraph. It's practicing my new keynote, even for 30 seconds. And it is pitching myself to one event. Those are my 3 things that I do every morning, no matter what. Even on busy days, even on those things can take 3 minutes for me. My journaling can get shortened. Any of those things can get kind of like, I like to ideally write down 5 things I'm grateful for and write down my goals and do a visualization, but I don't always have time for all of that. And so you can start to come up with, what are my non-negotiables? Like on the busiest day ever, what are things that I can shorten? So on a really busy day, maybe I don't write down the gratitude, but I think about it when I'm in the shower getting ready, Or maybe I just write down one thing I'm grateful for this morning. And maybe I don't write down my goals and do my visualization because I'm okay skipping that. I feel connected to them in my heart and I don't need to do it every morning, right? Or maybe something like that is a non-negotiable for you, but some of these other things that I've mentioned that are relevant to my personal goals aren't relevant for you. What's important is that you come up with your minimums and that they can be dialed down into literally just a few minutes if you have a really busy day. That is number one. The second thing that is really important is that you don't allow your morning routine to continue into the rest of your day. So you can never be behind on it. You can never need to catch up on it. How do I know this? Because I messed up and I went through a span of a number of days where I was constantly trying to finish my morning routine at 3 p.m. because I had a way too long morning routine, too many things that didn't fit in. And so I literally didn't finish them on Michael's first nap. And then I was still trying to finish them on his second nap. And I realized something was wrong. And I realized that I thrived and felt the best and had the most productive days when my morning routine stayed in the morning. Meaning, if I have less time today, those things just need to shorten up, but I still do them and they get done and I close the book. This feeling of being behind on things is a horrible feeling. It does not bring good energy. We don't have space for that. So leave that outside. Do not bring that into your day. You are not behind. That's why we have a very, very small minimum commitment. If the only things you want to do in your morning routine are reading and gratitude, maybe your minimum commitment is writing down one thing you're grateful for and reading one page. You can do that in 2 minutes. Now, you might have 30 minutes on an ideal day because you get up 30 minutes before you need to leave for work or start your day, and you're able to read for 15 and journal on 5 things you're grateful for. Maybe that leads to some other journaling on some intentions for the day or whatever it is. But if you just have that 2 minutes, you can still do it. So it's figuring out what those things are and leaving it in the morning. The next thing is something I also mentioned on the previous episode that's been really helpful for me, which is having a habit tracker. So if you are new to incorporating the morning routine, it's very, very helpful to write it down, acknowledge it, see your progress. Jerry Seinfeld actually had a habit tracker for writing jokes every day, and his was a big calendar, and he would put a red X on the calendar, and he never missed a day. And he felt so inspired by looking at all of the red X's on all of the previous days and weeks and months that he never missed a day. And I love that concept, and I think in the more modern world, we can use apps, we can use all kinds of different methods, but maybe you're a person who loves the physical, the tangible, and maybe having a real calendar and writing it down is great for you. I will say that eventually it just becomes a habit and you don't feel you need the habit tracker anymore, especially if it's a daily morning routine. But in the beginning, it's very, very helpful. So I highly recommend the habit tracker in the beginning. And then finally, when you think about your morning routine, I want you to make it something that sparks your light. Because ultimately, if you feel excited starting your day, all of that energy is going to carry into everything else. So if you're begrudgingly doing your routine, what is the motivation to keep doing this routine? Like, what's the point? So you need to really find things that you enjoy, that support you and support your goals, and find a way that works for you. If you hate reading a physical book, try listening to an audiobook while you sip your coffee. That can be a huge game changer for you and still help you hit your goal of reading a certain amount of books per year or reading more frequently or whatever that goal is. So when you incorporate these different strategies, it's really about you doing something you enjoy at the end of the day. Because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to keep doing it. You're not. So you have to have that spark behind what you're doing and make it feel good. For me, my morning routine is my me time. I am inspired to get out of bed early because I want this me time. The last thing I will leave you with is a sort of mental concept that has helped me so much. So much. In fact, I'm just thinking, maybe I need to write a book about this concept. That's how much I believe in it. I actually think it would be a great book. Great title. I'm seeing it now. But it's funny because I'm writing my hope book, so I'm not going to start writing a different book yet. But if this idea still sticks after my hope book comes out, then maybe I will start writing this one next, because it's been something for years that has really helped me. And by the way, if this idea helps you, please tell me about it, because I like to hear about things that are getting traction for other people, not just me, because those are the things I need to share on a greater scale, like writing a book about. But I don't know if things are helping you if you don't share them with me. I'm kind of like talking. I'm literally in this room with these really bright lights and this camera just talking to myself. So I have no idea what actually is helping you or not if you guys don't tell me. But this is one so far I have heard before has helped. And like I said, it helps me every single day. And the concept is pain now or pain later. So with every decision you make, you're either choosing pain now or pain later. Neither is right nor wrong. So I am not condemning choosing pain later. Sometimes that is the right choice for you. Sometimes it's nighttime, there's dishes in the sink, and I am just too exhausted, and pain later is doing them in the morning, and I'm okay with that. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But a lot of the time I choose pain now, and this is especially true with my morning routine. So every morning when I wake up, I look at my phone to see what time it is. Let's say it's 6:32. I will immediately say to myself, pain now or pain later. And what that means for me in that moment is the pain now is getting out of bed. I don't feel like doing it. It's always cold when you get out of bed. I hate being cold, and I'm always cold. So that's always an issue. I like to have my robe like right there. I'm a big robe girl. I'm always in my robe. It's so warm and fuzzy, and I'm always cold, and it just makes me so warm. But even so, it's always cold getting out of bed. You're still tired. You'd rather just lay in bed longer. Of course, nobody wants to get out of bed, right? So that's pain now. It's going to be uncomfortable right now for like 5 seconds. Once you're physically standing, it's not that bad, honestly. And the tired doesn't really hit you once you're already awake. It might hit you at 3 p.m. for sure, but it's not going to hit you when you have just stood up out of bed. It's like you're awake. At that point, you've already stood up, you're already awake. So that's the pain now. The pain later for me is, it is now, let's just say 7:45. And Michael is crying, waiting for me to get him up. And I have not done the things I wanted to do for myself, for my day. That is so painful for me, because before I start my day, I want to do these minimum commitments I have to myself. I don't want my morning routine, as I mentioned, to carry into the day. I tried that. It didn't work. I felt crappy all day, and I got nothing else done other than my morning routine the whole freaking day. And I have other goals. So the pain later for me is so strong to not do those things. If the pain later for you isn't that strong, we got some examining to do. Examining your why. Why do you want to do those things? Why is it so important to you? And what happens? What are the consequences if you don't do them? And really understand. Sometimes you don't see the consequences in the short term. If I don't practice my speech today, there are no consequences. And there are no consequences tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. But 2 months from now, when I get on stage at a big conference, if I don't do a good job, that's when the consequences hit from all those 2 months of not doing it, right? So sometimes our consequences don't catch up with us till later. But I actively remind myself of those consequences in the pain later. I remind myself that if I don't practice, that I'm going to get up on that stage and I'm not going to do a good job. It just is. So really connecting to that pain later. And for me, it's every day worth pain now getting out of bed. And that was even when I was sick and I didn't feel good. And I just still got out of bed because I'm like, I cannot possibly imagine the pain later. It's just so much worse than the pain now for me in this moment of my life with these goals. So that's a strategy that you can use to help you get out of bed and stick to your morning routine. And it works as long as you have things that you're really connected to, that have stronger pain later than the pain now, ultimately. So that's one that really helps me. And by the way, you can obviously use that little phrase in any situation. I use it quite often throughout my day as well. Just helps so much with self-accountability. And the pain later sometimes is just, I didn't do the things I said I was going to do. And that feels really bad. I hate that feeling of looking back on my day and knowing that I wasn't self-accountable. So what is your pain later? And can that help you stay committed to your morning routine? So just to summarize with your morning routine, make sure that it is going to be something that is super short. Pick your non-negotiables. Keep it in your morning. Don't carry it on throughout your day. And make sure it sparks your light. Make sure it's something that you're excited about, because otherwise you're not going to be motivated to keep doing it every day. I hope this episode inspired you and made your morning routine a little bit more realistic for our real lives, because we're all humans. We're all busy. We all have things going on. And my goal is to make this thing as simple as possible for you and real. We don't need to dedicate 2 hours to our morning routine every day to live a life that sparks our light, but even 5 minutes can make the biggest difference in the world. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next episode.